Hi, Sasha. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, and welcome to all the haters at home who are tuning in for this lovely episode with Sasha here. Now, obviously, I'm a good friend of yours, Sasha. I know you very well from the club, but
Yes.
if anyone is unfamiliar with who you are, who on earth are you? What do you get up to?
What do I do? So, I suppose from a club point of view, I've pretty much been involved from the beginning. I think it's fair to say that Toby and Dan were like kind of the driving force of hate. But we used to play. We all used to play together
Yeah.
before then. Um, and I ran. So, for example, I ran a quite a long running Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah.
The people who started Hate, and it was Toby who kind of dragged me back into wargaming. Actually,
Yeah.
probably 13 years ago.
Just 30 ago.
Yeah, so I've always been a role player, and I mean, literally almost always. I think I started when I was like 9, maybe 8, because it would have been 8 because it was 1979. And I started role playing with a game called Tunnels and Trolls because you can
Yeah.
play that on your own. As a child, I think there's no shame in saying it that I had reading difficulties, and my parents wanted something that I might be motivated to have a bash at reading. So they got Tunnels and Trolls. I loved the art. Elizabeth Danforth, she's amazing. And yeah, and I thought, well, I may as well give this reading malarkey a go because this looks good. And yeah, so I've been role playing for a long time. I played a lot of Warhammer in the 80s, and then kind of life and Magic the Gathering kind of got hold. And I always role played. And oh god, what was it? 1999. I co-founded a role-playing games company called Pelgrane Press, and we made a game called The Dying Earth, which is based on the Jack Vance books. And since then, Pelgrane Press has gone on to amazing things. So they now do their main thing is the Gumshoe system and 13th Age, which is a sort of a kind of Dungeons and Dragons D20 game. But the Gumshoe system has a game called Trail of Cthulhu, which is an incredibly popular game for running investigative.
No, I've heard of Trail of Cthulhu, and I mean, I'm guessing it's similar to Call of Cthulhu.
The background is, but the rule system is very different, and it's much more around. So it's this whole thing of Call of Cthulhu is a great game, but it was designed as a game for playing basically a fantasy Dungeons and Dragons style game.
Yeah.
And then they bolted on Call of Cthulhu, which is kind of genius when you think about it. But it doesn't always sit right with people who want to do very narrative, very kind of non-combaty games. The example I always give is if you're the librarian and you go into the library, and to move the story forward, you need to find the yellow book of signs, right?
Yeah.
And you've got like 89%, and you roll 90, and it's like, and what do you do, right? So one of two things happens: either the wisecracking cop who has never been into a library in their life, who has 5%, goes, "Oh, I'll give it a go," and they roll a 3, and it's like, "Oh, is it this book?" Which can be quite fun, and that's okay. But it's also that thing of like, you lack agency, and so it gets away with all that. And it says basically, if you're in the right place and you ask the right question and you have the right skill, you get the clue.
Yeah.
And the differentiation is you can say, I want to spend a number of points from my pool because I think this is an important clue, and I think there may be additional features to this clue. Yeah. So, if you say, right, well, I'm going to spend 3 points in my library use, then you always get the clue no matter what. But it might be that a ticket stub falls out that somebody's been using to mark their place in it, and it's like, oh, why was somebody traveling to lower
Convenient.
soft? So it's stuff like that. It's a great system. It's a great game.
Cool.
I have very little to do with it anymore, but it's run by a very, very, very cool bunch of people. So
that's good to hear. So when you're in the club, I guess we'd normally find you in the boat room, the sail.
I think I'm probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a long running fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Legendary, I would say.
Legendary Dwimmermount. Which is a 13 level mega dungeon, and I think we're on after sort of 4 years elapsed time and probably 2 years of playing, maybe 2.5 years of playing.
Yeah.
We're on level 7. Characters are 8th level. They're hard as nails now, and it's starting to be a real challenge to give them a challenge.
As a big jump comes after level 7, it starts to get.
Yeah, it really does. They're really quite. But I mean, they've been fighting frost giants recently, and then the rest of the time I will be playing pretty much any game that anyone wants me to play. I really like trying new systems. I very much into kind of Age of Sigmar fantasy stuff at the moment. I played a lot of Warhammer 40k. I haven't played 40k. I think probably in about 9 months. Well, okay, let's take away the 3 months that I haven't been allowed out of the house. But so maybe even a year. It's like been a long time since I played 40k.
Yeah.
But I do love 40k, and I love the 40k universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like a game called Dragon Rampant, which is a very simple system. And one of the things I like about that is that all armies have the same units. There's no, you can add a few fantasy elements to the units, but you will get the same. The light infantry, heavy infantry, elite, cavalry, that sort of stuff, and then you just make up a story behind it, which is really fun. I really like Frostgrave, and it's been a real pleasure having Joe, who wrote Frostgrave, come down to the club and do that weekend, which I know, Andy, you were part of.
One of the best weekends I had down the club. It was fantastic.
It was a great weekend, and it's a great system. Really, a lot of fun. But I'm willing to try anything. I'm not a huge historical gamer for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I think if I was to do historical gaming, I'd probably want to do early Roman. As far away from real life as possible, because it's a personal thing, but it's not for me. The whole Second World War thing is a bit too close to the bone at times. But
not for everyone.
Exactly, and it shouldn't be, and that's but I love seeing. I'm part of the Hate Historical Facebook group, and I love seeing people's kind of desert Nazis and Siberian
Deutsch and Africa Corps.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's fantastic. Yeah,
lovely, cool. So if anyone sees you around, they can come and talk to you about.
Oh God, yes, please do. Yeah. I mean, I'm a loud introvert, so I do get. I mean, I definitely get shy. And I definitely want to talk to more people, but there's that little bit of my brain that goes, "I don't want to talk to you, so go away."
Not true, Sasha. We all want to talk to you. You just So, first question. Here we go. Nice softball for you. What's on your workbench? What are you working on currently?
Ooh, well, I started in the late summer. I hired a studio about 15 minutes walk from my place, which I share with Gary, who does all the wonderful. Hi, Gary, who's going to be doing the wonderful editing on this, and occasionally Michael, who's been slowly 3D printing a Starfort, not a 40k Starfort, and because of the lockdown, I haven't been in as much. One of the reasons why I haven't been in as much is because I've been able to spend more time with my wife, which
Yay!
and also to start off with, I was a bit like, well, you shouldn't travel and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a couple of weeks, I was talking about it with my wife, and she went, "Yeah, but is there going to be anyone else in the studio?" And I was like, "No." And she said, "Well, you're just as isolated there. If you drive over there,
Yeah.
just as isolated there, as long as you wash your hands and all those kinds of things." I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." So I've been going a little bit more, but it has meant that my hobby stuff has been reduced. But on my workbench so I'm working on a Seraphon army for Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
I'm sort of kind of about 2/3 of the way through of a Tamarkan Throne of Chaos army for Age of Sigmar, which is a Nurgle army, basically,
Yep.
a Nurgle fantasy army, a mixture of demons and Chaos Warriors and things like that. And I paint models for my D&D campaign, so there's
Yep.
always random stuff that, because they're getting
Yeah.
powerful, it's the monsters are getting
Getting a bit more expensive for you then.
yeah, exactly. But the main thing, well, I've got two main projects. One is I'm 3D printing and making a scatter terrain table for Mira's Rainbow
Yeah. No, she
Rainbow
told us last episode.
Kingdom
Yeah.
Frostgrave board.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. I'm learning more and more about 3D printers, and there are good days and bad days with 3D printers, which is a bit like quarantine. And I'm building a 6x4 Warhammer 40k fixed table. So although there is it's sculpted, it's not scatter terrain. You can pick up the table and the whole thing, everything comes with you, and things like that. And that's it started. It was going to be a Necromunda terrain board, and then I just went, you know what? Why not just do it as a full 6x4, and then either two people can play Necromunda on it, or you can have a smaller or a big game, kill team or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's very, very, very loosely based on the landing pads that feature in Rogue One at the end of the film. So there's this sort of tropical islands that have these landing pads, and there's like kind of underground doorways that go into the train system that takes you to the central tower. And this is like a very grim, dark version of that.
Yeah.
And it's beginning to come along. Obviously, it's slowed down. It's quite an undertaking. And I've kind of learned a lot from it already, and I'm learning a lot every time I get on it. And it turns out that figuring out the order in which you do stuff is super important with these sorts of builds.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that if you I have no experience, but 3D printing, it's another hobby. So you have your hobby, playing games and so on, and then 3D printing is another hobby which you learn and develop.
Absolutely, and it can be very frustrating because you can print three things off in a row and it goes and everything's working, and then you go back in the next day and you've printed a fourth, like you're printing the same thing, fourth one, and it's gone crazy, and you need to figure out what, and there's spaghetti everywhere and all those kinds of things. Thankfully, I have a Gary, and Gary is very knowledgeable in it seems to be Gary's very knowledgeable in most things.
Yes, and handsome.
And handsome, yes, yeah, and he's run a marathon or two or something. So
man,
yeah.
I've eaten Snickers. This is about as close as I've got to that. So lots of stuff going on.
Yes, always. Yeah, and there's electronics involved because I'm doing lighting, sort of lights that sort of focus in on the center of the landing pad, and because I love playing around with electronics, and I'm a computer programmer broadly. So there's
That sounds fun.
Yes, it's very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to people coming and playing on it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So I think you organised an open day previously, haven't you? So I guess
that was organised by the council, because the council organised like a big open studio thing where they randomly dumped our local MP on me for 15 minutes, which was
living the dream.
Which was fun. Yeah,
Lovely. So, Sasha, what are you reading at the moment? What have you got on your bedside table? What you?
So, I just finished a kind of pulpy, Lovecraftian kind of noir, which name escapes me. It wasn't that good. It was one of those things that you can just smash through and enjoy. I'm just about to finish reading the first of the Runestaff books, the Michael Moorcock books.
Oh yeah,
the Jewel in the Skull. I think I last read it maybe like 15, 20 years ago, something like that. And because we had massive building work at the house, one of the things I've been spending most of my time doing, or both of us have been spending most of our time doing, is cleaning, because we had a building site for 5 months, and we literally finished a week before lockdown. And the levels of dust and everything. So yeah, I mean, I spent 3 days cleaning books, and of course I found, as you do, it's kind of 3 days cleaning books is more like 2 days cleaning books and 1 day going, oh, I've forgotten about this book, and I must read this again, and I need to organise these by colour and by type anyway, that sort of stuff. Otherwise, I have been hobby-wise, I have been reading Dungeon Saga rules, because I thought we might play Dungeon Saga, Christina and I. I've been reading what's it called? The Games Workshop, the new Games Workshop's fantasy skirmish game, which his name has escaped me.
Warcry.
I've been reading one of the.
I was like, I know
yeah, the Monsters and Mercenaries book, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
From Warcry, and there was another book. Oh, I'm also looking at running a Gumshoe. Remember, I mentioned Gumshoe, the program. But I'm thinking of running a Gumshoe Inquisitor game over video conferencing. So I've been rereading the Esoterrorists book, which is the kind of very compact version of Gumshoe, because obviously over video it's got to be kind of rules light. So
did you say esoteric or esoterrorist book?
Esoterrorists.
That's what I think.
It's a great set. Yeah, it's a great setting. It's basically you play investigators in a world where there are these things that live in the outer black, and they have very little power in our world. And what they can do is they can fake supernatural events until people start believing in the supernatural. And as as more and more people believe in the supernatural has more and more real world sway.
Yes.
So it's kind of like this. There's this crossover where Scooby Doo and the gang try and peel the face off Old Man Withers, and it turns out that the ghoul is the ghoul.
Yeah. Actually, he is a monster.
Yeah. So it's a good rule set for Inquisitor. So I've been looking at that.
Yeah, keep my eyes. Let us know how that works out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So lots of reading going on.
Yes.
This one's a bit longer.
Okay.
Tough one now.
Okay.
What does gaming mean to you?
Ooh.
In 500 words or less.
So right, you'll be lucky. You've met me, right? So it's interesting. The thing that I love the most about Dungeons and Dragons and role playing more broadly, but Dungeons and Dragons in particular, is the sense of wonder. Is the fantastical. Is the Robin Laws calls it the strange vistas. The kind of that feeling of like, oh my god, this is just this incredible world with sights that are impossible for us to kind of see in our world, and therefore it is that visualizing the impossible. Don't get me wrong, I love role playing and I love getting to the point where you can throw fireballs around and all that kind of stuff. But it is really that, and I think that it's the story, it's that wow factor. When I'm wargaming, I like that too. My favorite games are ones where, so like if you ever play like Toby, for example, he's got the kind of memory which means that he names all of his sergeants and machines and tanks and all those kinds of things, and he remembers them. So when you're playing with him, he doesn't say I'm moving my my las dread 6 inches. It's core on the destroyer or whatever, and there's always a little story about it, and I love that. I love I love that kind of sense of story. I like winning. I do, and I mean, I know there was this. We were talking about it the other day on the group around not having to win, and I definitely don't have to win if I'm having a good game otherwise.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, then I mean, I've played games where I've been smashed into the ground by somebody who really doesn't understand the contract of gaming.
Yes.
And they get pleasure out of other people not having a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm just not interested in that anymore. We talked about it, right? And we've coined this kind of idea that your job, your role when you're playing a game is to entertain your opponents, your fellow players. If everyone is doing that, you have a great time. But if only one of you is doing it, then only one of you will have a good time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
If you're both trying to make sure it's a great game, you both win.
Exactly. And that's exactly. And it's that ethos of the most the trophy and award that we love the most is the favorite player, is the is that. And we also celebrate the wooden spoon, and I have won many wooden spoons. Or should I say, I celebrate wooden spoon because I have so many of them. But I think the last wooden spoon I got was a wooden hammer because they couldn't find a wooden spoon. So, yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
same difference.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break there.
Yep. The main thing is the doctors didn't think it was too serious.
Oh, and we're back.
Oh,
hi everyone. We're just chatting about something. So back on with the question, Sasha.
Yes.
People want to know. You've mentioned one lady already, but what artists inspire you? Obviously, Bub. Hi, Ed.
Yeah, I mean Ed. And of course Henry South.
Yes.
I think. I mean, like I said. So Liz Danforth. She was a line illustrator, and she did a lot of kind of almost like 1920s Art Nouveau style fantasy stuff. I really like Aubrey. I've forgotten the surname. I have a terrible memory for names, so apologies for that. But I quite like that kind of Art Nouveau fantasy style. I'm a big fan of surrealist movement, futurism. I like futurism.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think we can, definitely see the influences of futurism on 40K. From sort of fantasy art, I really like Brom, the guys that do the magic cards. Some of the old, like Rodney Matthews did a lot of stuff in the kind of 70s. I quite like, I'm into sort of psychedelic stuff. Obviously, I mean, the Games Workshop, John Blanche is incredible. The guy who's Ian Miller.
Yes, yeah.
Does the kind of cross-hatching line stuff. I actually first he did a illustrated book of it's like a bestiary for Lord of the Rings, like in the early 80s, and the stuff in there is just just fantastic. So yeah, lots of kind of, you know, I quite like mood stuff. I like what's his name, the guy who did the Tales from the Loop, the Swedish guy.
That's lovely. I mean, it's
fantastic stuff.
Back of that as a whole role play as a TV series, it just was.
Been working way through the TV series.
Evocative.
Very evocative.
Like a simple rural scene with this robot, and it just.
William Blake, that whole kind of crazy, you know, kind of stuff like that. So
so not many then.
So I mean, you know, not many. No.
That's good. But do you find that bleeds into the work that you do with your modelling?
I definitely think that that idea of line art is definitely something that I had to almost escape, because I wanted to be very involved and, you know, kind of very detailed and stuff like that. But I ended up, when I used to draw a lot, I ended up doing very clean lines, and that's because I think, you know, as a child, that was what I was attracted to.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, you know, I've done a few kind of, like, you know, I've got a bunch of hobgoblins that are done in a very Blancescu style, which I'm very pleased with. Yeah. So definitely. Recently, there's a woman called Dana Howe who's been doing a series of videos on painting models and using an airbrush. And you know, I love her style. It's quite. I'm sure other people have done it before, because, you know, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants. But it's a really nice style, and that's what I'm using for my Seraphon. Is that? So no, I definitely get heavily influenced by stuff that I see. You know, Ben at the club, you know, his whalers, the 40K whalers.
Oh yeah, they're lovely. They're
you know, that's something that I look at, and that really inspires me. You know, there's lots of stuff.
I had the dedication to go, this is what I'm going to do with. I don't know how long it took forever to do, but I seem to anyway. Just having the dedication. I'm always churning, just trying to get.
Yeah, you're an army painter.
Obviously. So just to have that time to dedicate, go, no, this is what I'm going to do as a project. Now get a vision and take the time to do it. It's must be very satisfying.
Focus. You know, I think that's sometimes something that I'm aware that I have to be very disciplined with my focus, because, you know, literally, I mean, you asked me what was on my hobby desk, but in the boxes behind my hobby desk are probably 7 or 8 other unfinished armies.
Yeah.
You know, and I flit around, and I've already got this idea for, because I've always, you know, we always used to laugh at Ultramarines, and I was like, you know what? No, I want to do an Ultramarine army, and I want them to do them so that they're utterly battered. I mean, you know, you've got people with arms in slings and missing limbs, and you know, models where almost all the paint's been off. You know, the blue has gone from being shot at so much.
You do the marker calf? No, because I don't. Spoilers. Sun explodes, and it leaves this red scar at the side that was exposed to the exploding sun.
There we go. Right. So exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly that sort of stuff. Yeah. But, you know, and that really needs to go at the bottom of the list, because I've got so many other projects.
My top tip is, and this is, I'm sure you know this, is just to make a list of everything you have, and just be honest with yourself. Go like, I'm going to make a list of everything.
Yeah, I'm going to need more memory in my laptop.
Yeah, an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I've got it. And being a software developer, I've got.
Okay, what do I really think I'm going to do?
Yeah, that's it.
I've just boxed it and gone. Okay, I'm just not even going to think about it this year.
Yeah,
it's just going away.
But I mean, the problem is, and I suspect that many people have had this in that. So, for example, in, you know, like 1998. I had a distant cousin who moved to Australia, and he was really into Warhammer 40k and Necromunda, and he wasn't going to take it with him. So he gave it all to me, and it was all unpainted. It was all in boxes. It was all on sprues. And he literally, I thought I was going to be getting like a couple of boxes, and that would be, I was like, well, okay. I mean, I'm kind of interested in the hobby broadly, but I don't play those games, but it's fine. Yeah, and he just turned up with this massive box, and I was like, oh, great, okay. And then somebody else I knew said that they're really, really, and they were really struggling financially, and they lost their job. And I was like, look, have this big box of stuff, because I'm never going to use it. And of course, I'm glad that I did, but there's a part of me that wishes I'd never give it. I mean, there was literally like every single original Necromunda model. So, 15 lemon russes, original, the old school lemon russes is like,
Oh man. Oh well.
Yes.
You did a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it is that thing of I struggle to give stuff up, but I'm getting better at it.
I found that if someone had something available, like, oh Andrew, do you want this thing? Oh yeah, I'll have that.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll definitely have it. What is it?
Yeah, what's that again? I'll have that.
Yeah.
I'll use that for something. Talk about things that inspire you. Do you have a favourite genre of movies and films?
So annoyingly, I describe myself as having a very low bar for enjoying films and a very high bar for loving films.
Yeah.
So I will happily kind of nonce, like, I will sit through a Channel 5 mid-afternoon Thursday straight to TV special, right? Yeah. Because my bar for watching a film is it more interesting than staring out the window? Because often I use films as basically a way of purging my brain of all the kind of crazy stuff that's going on. But in terms of films that I absolutely love, then it's higher and harder. I really like kind of post-apocalyptic, slightly tongue-in-cheek, and slightly sometimes badly made. So films like Axiom Mutante, which is an Italian science fiction film, and it's also a commentary on disability. The protagonists are all disabled. I love. There's a film with Molly Ringwald in it called. I can't remember what the actual title is, but it's Adventures Across the Bright Zone, and it's like this crazy sci-fi. I mean, it's real. It's definitely one of those sorts of films that influenced 40k. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of films that influenced 40k from that kind of, falling apart.
Have you seen A Boy and His Dog?
Yeah, I mean that's quite grim, which I really like.
Yeah.
But I also like one of my favorite films is a film called Repo Man, which has my favorite actor in it, who's Harry Dean Stanton, and punks, and I was a punk for a very long time. But I also really, there's one of my other favorite films also has Harry Dean Stanton in it, which is a film called Paris, Texas, which is kind of
it's a good film.
Yeah, kind of a love story. Recently we watched I, Tonya, which is a kind of semi-serious biopic of Tonya Harding. I mean, it's a great film. Really enjoyed it, So I mean, not just genre films, but I do really like genre films. Yeah. Have watched all the Marvel films more than once, and once a year watch all of the Lord of the Rings films with Christina. She really likes the Lord of the Rings films. The director's cut. 10 hours. Watch the Hobbit first. Then Lord of the Rings.
Oh yes. Yeah, the Hobbit movies. I'm not going to talk about the Hobbit movies.
Well, the great thing about the Hobbit. I don't know. I think unfortunately a lot of people probably just didn't make it. If you watch the director's cut of the last one, is it The Desolation of Smaug? I can't remember, but it's the first 15 minutes is totally not in the book, as in much of it, the Hobbit isn't in the book, but it's basically Galadriel, Gandalf, Radagast, Saruman, and a couple of the elven warriors beating up the necromancer. And it is watching a high-level party fight a high-level evil dude and his minions.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the film is a Warhammer film. It's got ogres, it's got giants, it's got it's got dwarves riding rams. It's got it's a war film.
Yeah.
But that's the director's cut. The director's cut, I would argue, is probably much more fun for gamers than anyone else. But yeah, so
I guess I would have preferred them do 2 films and stick really to the book.
Yeah, and I think also I think I don't. I mean, I like I said, I do love the Lord of the Rings films, and I love Peter Jackson. But I think the problem is I think I was getting a bit tired of his kind of natural realism.
Yeah.
And I'd have loved to have had a much more kind of trippy, psychedelic The Hobbit.
There's a kind of a fey kind of Lord of the Rings, which is not encapsulated in that's it's real and the magic is real. There's no because Lord of the Rings stuff on the different worlds and magic leaving with and it never really captured that for me. That kind of which you get that's original animated one that has that kind of
exactly. And I think that if you Google Lord of the Rings or Tolkien art from the 1970s, it's like looking at a different world, and it really challenges your way of, because I think one of the problems with the films, which are great, but I think one of the problems is that it solidifies our view of how that world looked. If you go back and look at how people were interpreting it in the 70s, it's really, really strange and wonderful in very different ways.
I was lucky enough to listen to the radio plays as well. On Radio 4 after Gardener's Question Time.
Yeah, of course.
We would sit and listen to Lord of the Rings, and so I was drawing, because this is before I read the books, because I was much younger, and I kind of got to paint all the pictures myself in my head. Listening to the story.
Exactly. I mean, my mum read me Lord of the Rings. Going back to the not bothering to learn to read till a bit later on. My mum read the Lord of the Rings to me as a child, and of course, again, that was the thing that I was forming my own images of everything. It was mildly terrifying, particularly the Balrog. But yes.
Has any of that influence? I'm not sure if it talked about this already, but what's your next army project? What's your next project? You're talking about you've got a lot of 3D printing stuff going on. Is there anything forces you're building for anything?
So there's an interesting question. So I'm not buying any miniatures this year. I'm spending money on terrain and paints and bits and bobs, but I've got so much plastic and so much metal that I suspect if I was to paint it at a medium pace, I'd die before I finished it all. And so I've been like, no, let's just finish and get through the stuff that you've got, and if you look at stuff and go, I don't want to paint that, then figure out a way of finding somebody who does want to paint it. I'm struggling because GW are putting out some mighty fine miniatures at the moment.
Some awful ones as well.
The Mind Stealer Sphinx is just, I so want that model. And the new High Elves, or Eladria, or whatever I can't remember what they're called, Wanderers, or whatever it is. Also, I mean, there's a good Lamassu, which is the lion with the winged lion with the face of a man, which it just looks stunning from the pictures, because I've got the new White Dwarf down there. So it's hard, but I'm gonna, I've got this far, so I'm gonna stick to it.
It will be here, I imagine.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I've got, like I said, I've got the Seraphon to finish up. I've got plenty of Chaos stuff to finish up. I have Toby gave me a Slaughter and pre-Slaughter Dark Elf army
Nice.
A while back, and I'd love to paint those as Drow because they originally were Drow models, so that the dark skin, white hair, sort of purple skin. But yeah, and also this Ultramarine, the slow grow Ultramarine project. Yeah, but mostly I focus on terrain.
Yeah.
I really love making terrain.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's the third army. It's the you need to have terrain to play the game, and it's the third army. So taking that time, two beautifully painted armies. I mean, I've played with cardboards, twisted bits of cardboard on the floor. I had great games, but what I think at the club we're getting to such another level of quality of the scenery that we have. It's really something special to have.
Yeah, and we've got to do justice because there are some amazing painters at the club, and they're bringing down these fantastic armies, and you've got to have terrain that matches those armies. So and I did that mushroom terrain for the Frostgrave thing, and
that was great.
I think it was probably probably 3 weeks, 9 till 5, Monday to Friday work on that, and it was so. I mean, I loved it. I was literally. I mean, it was when Christina was away. We were having the building work going on, and I would go into the studio at like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 in the morning, and I'd have lunch, and then I'd start going, well, I'm beginning to get hungry, so maybe I need to go home. It's probably like coming up to 8 o'clock, and it was midnight because I was just
so focused,
loving it. Yeah, absolutely loving it. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to be my next terrain piece after the big 40K board.
Yeah.
But I also want to try and sell some stuff because the studio is expensive. I need to figure out a way of.
You heard it here first, folks. If I can even say it. Sasha, about your dream scenery.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Comment, subscribe, and comment.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Cool. We'll take a break there.